Hello friends, and welcome back to the fifth installment of our Food Forest Design class. This installment covers management. And I'm using the word management and not the word maintenance. You know, when you maintain something, you're trying to keep it in its original condition, like maintaining your car or maintaining your home. What you're doing with a food forest is directing and managing a process or a system that's actually constantly changing. Okay, so you've got it all planted out, and now you're done doing most of the work, and nature is going to take over now and do most of the work, and forest succession is going to start happening, all powered by the energy of the sun. So that's nice. You're sort of handing off most of the hard work over to the sun and over to nature. But now your food forest is going to grow and it's going to change over time. It's going to become more productive in terms of food for you. It's going to provide more habitat for wildlife. And it's going to become less and less the need for watering, mulching, the management activities that you'll have to do as a gardener are going to become less and less over time. So yeah, in the beginning, it's least productive, most work, but both of those things move in opposite directions, and towards the end, it's very productive with little work. So that's what you're doing, and you're managing that process. Um, the uh, the thing is, even if you didn't do anything, if you just stopped mowing the grass, if you started out with just a grassy lawn, nature is going to try to turn that into a forest, and nature will turn that into a forest. The only places that doesn't happen on Earth is where it's either too dry or whether the ground is too swampy. Um, but as long as there's enough rainfall and the ground can drain, forests spring up. And that's what happens all over the world when man doesn't disturb that land. Um, Now you've gotten that off to a big head start with all of the plants that you've put into the ground and all the 7 layers of the food forest that we've talked about. So you've really kick-started that process. And now you're going to do things management-wise that will additionally increase the speed of that forest succession process. Okay? So it's important that you take that on as your responsibility, and you basically are a keystone species now of your garden. You've got hundreds of plant species in your garden, countless thousands if you count all the microbiology and fungi, all of that. And you're one species among many, but you are one of the keystone species. Okay, so there are important things that you should do, and there's also some very important things that you should not do. Um, let's start out with the things that you should not do. Um, Tilling, disturbing the ground, harming your mycorrhizal network in any way. So ripping out plants, roots and all, that disturbs them. Walking all over your garden, that compacts the soil and disturbs it. So yeah, don't disturb your mycorrhizal fungi. Give them a nice, cozy, wonderful place to live where they've got moisture and they've got sugars coming down to them from plants because you've planted it out really well with lots of plants and tried to cover all the ground with your 7 layers of your food forest. And then don't compact that soil by walking on it. Make yourself some pathways. Use those pathways whenever possible. Of course, you'll have to get off of them sometimes to harvest your fruit or drop your mulch, maybe do some pruning and chop and drop mulching, but just minimize that and use your trails as much as possible. Um, let's see, you don't want to use chemicals, okay? A big no-no is using chemicals, insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, ant killer, fertilizers, chemical fertilizers. All of these chemicals do more harm than good. They set you up for an endless cycle of problems, okay? You've used chemical fertilizers, you've destroyed your mycorrhizal fungi. Now that they're gone, now you have no choice but to use chemical fertilizers after that. And you're stuck in that cycle forever, and you're always going to have to spend money on that. Um, so focus your attention on taking care of your mycorrhizal fungi, and you will not even have to bring in fertilizer. In the beginning, you'll want to bring in some mulch, and that's going to become the fertility that you need for your plants. Over time, the forest provides its own mulch more and more, and you'll have to do less and less. And you get to the point where you don't have to do anything when it comes to fertility. It's all going to get better and better every year for you without you lifting a finger or doing a thing. No chemicals. And also another endless cycle on the chemicals would be an example of spraying an insecticide or using BT to kill caterpillars. If the predators that eat those insects don't see any of those around, they're not going to come around. They're going to go somewhere else. And I mean, that's the indication. If you're having really bad pest infestations in your garden, you simply don't have the predators that you should have to take care of those bugs and those problems. And we're talking about parasitic wasps and birds, even lizards and frogs, and there's a lot of predators, and you want to make sure you have a rich ecosystem full of all the levels of the food web, so that that your predators are around to keep things in balance. Another thing not to do with the food forest is grow too many annuals, or really any annuals. I don't mind. I like growing some annuals. There are certain annuals I really love to grow, and but I grow those in my raised beds, and I don't even consider them part of the food forest because they just have very little ecological connection with the rest of the food forest. And annuals require a lot more concentrated fertility than perennials need. So that's one of the reasons why you can get away with just mulching, and that provides all the fertility you need, is because perennials just like a nice, slow, steady input of nutrients, and they don't like a big pulse of super enriched soil the way annuals require. So so just focus your efforts on perennials. You plant them once, you're done for the most part. Some of the perennials are kind of short-lived, but that's something we're going to get into in this video a little bit later on, talking about how to handle some of those. And then finally, on my list of things not to do, don't overwater. If you water too much, your plants become dependent on that. And they don't grow deep roots. They don't grow really extensive roots. You want to train your plants to get out there and find their own water. And if you have that mycorrhizal network working really well, it helps the plants get water. So to encourage all of that to grow as robustly as possible, you don't want to overwater. You do need to water enough to get things off to a real good start, but you don't want to overwater too much. Okay, now let's move on to the things that you need to do as the keystone species, the manager of your food forest. And let's pick it up right there with watering. In north central Florida, the hottest, driest combination months of the year, okay, are April and May. So April and May, it's getting hot like it is in summer, but the rains haven't come yet. The monsoon rains arrive in June. You got that in the next 4 months at that point, but by May especially, it's pretty hot and pretty dry. You'll have an occasional rain shower come through, but for a brand new garden with a lot of brand new plants that are just starting to, you're just starting to get them established in the ground and get those roots in good, that's the toughest time of year. So you need to watch for that and water. The goal is to, for the long term, get to the point where you never really need to water your garden much at all outside of April and May. That's where you want to get to eventually. In my experience, growing food forests in Florida for 15 years, in north central Florida, I think it might be doubtful to me that you could ever get to a point where you don't have to water at all in April and May. If so, that's fantastic. You've got one heck of a awesome food forest. I've not seen that yet, but I haven't actually been able to stick with it long enough um, to see what might happen with that. So yeah, if you design it well, plan it out well, possibly you could get through April and May without watering at all. But just use that as an initial goal: is could you get to the point where you don't have to water at all except April and May? If you can, you're doing really well. Okay, the next thing to do is to mulch. These gardens need a lot of mulch. A forest, a full mature forest, has had mulch, leaves, sticks, tree trunks, branches, Spanish moss. All of these things have been falling to the forest floor for year after year after year, many, many years. And these trees and this mycorrhizal network thrive in those conditions in the shady, moist forest. But if you're converting a grassy lawn to a food forest, you're starting from scratch. You just don't have that mulch and all those nutrients, all that organic matter in your soil yet. So you're going to have to mulch it a lot. Bring in a lot of mulch from the outside. You can get a lot of free material if you've been watching my videos. I'll take the yard waste and the bagged up leaves, all the stuff that people set out on the side of the road. I mean, I'd love it if they would use it in their own yards and plant their own food forests and use it, but I'd rather take it and put it in mine than let it to go to the landfill and take up space in the landfill. So you can get mulch that way. You don't have to spend a lot of money on mulch. Hopefully you have a good canopy at your site selection there, and that canopy will drop leaves that will provide a lot of the mulch you need. My live oaks are going to be dropping leaves in around February, and I'm expecting a big boost in my mulch on the ground when that happens. But to help out with mulching, you want to, as I've mentioned before in my previous videos, you want to plant a whole lot of Mexican sunflowers and grow your own mulch. Chop and drop mulching, it's so much more convenient and easy to do as compared to bringing in mulch from the outside, even if it's free. You just grow it right there on site. You never have to get in a vehicle. You don't ever have to move a wheelbarrow. You just grow it right on site, and I'm able to chop and drop my Mexican sunflowers 3 to 4 times per year. And I'll be discussing the timing and how you go about that and how you think about when's the right time to do that in another video. So watering and mulching, including chop and drop mulching, that's a couple of things. Pruning in general, sometimes you just need to prune because as your food forest grows, one thing is growing and shading out something else. And maybe a Mexican sunflower is starting to shade out a loquat tree, just for example. Well, the loquat tree is the preferred plant. The Mexican sunflower is supposed to be helping me. So if it's shading out my loquat, I'm going to prune away that Mexican sunflower, at least to just part of it at least, so that the high value plant, the fruit tree, so that it's getting enough sun. And so forth and so on. Something might be shading out a blueberry shrub, or even maybe you're growing some tropical leafy green herbs like longevity spinach, for example, and they like to grow in a little bit of shade, but not too much shade. If it's getting too dark, you might want to prune something back to give them a little bit more sun. So you just want to use your pruning judiciously. And then that leads to the last thing, which is you want to begin, you want to start out with a whole lot of Mexican sunflowers. And by the way, you can also use other excellent soil building plants. I like to use cassava, banana, and even things like cranberry hibiscus. They grow so well, and I can propagate them so easily. I could grow hundreds and hundreds of those if I wanted to. So I can use those for mulch. But as far as the non-food type plants, like mainly the Mexican sunflower, over the long term, as your forest gets shadier and shadier and your soil moisture retention is getting better and better, you can begin to replace those Mexican sunflowers with more valued fruit trees, for example, blueberry shrubs, for example. More peach trees, because peach tree is not the longest living tree. 5 to 10 years or so is a pretty good lifespan for a peach tree. So over time, as your peach trees get old and start to fade, they just get old, they become more disease prone. You might want to take those out and plant a blueberry shrub where they are. But when your forest is getting pretty shady and moist, you can also begin to take out your Mexican sunflowers. And eventually, I'm going to say in 5 to 10 years time from the beginning, you might eventually get to the point where all your Mexican sunflowers are gone. You don't have to keep growing those forever. You're just using them in the beginning to provide a lot of biomass and a lot of shade, moisture retention for your garden. But as time goes on, you can start taking those out one by one. And to do that, all you have to do is just constantly prune them during the growing season, right at ground level, so that they never have leaves to photosynthesize, and those roots will die if you do that. So, and then you've got some nice roots in the ground that are decomposing, and you've got really nice fertile soil. So in those spots where your Mexican sunflowers once were growing, again, you can grow more peach trees, you can put in plum trees, whatever kind of tree you like. My favorite is Japanese persimmons. I've got 9 of them, but who knows? Maybe I think I don't have enough, and I might want to put some more Japanese persimmons in there eventually. Or you might discover some new plant that actually works in your location that you haven't even grown yet in your garden. You might want to try those there. So that's pretty much the summary there of things to do. You want to water appropriately, but not too much. You want to mulch a lot. You can never have too much mulch. You want to prune judiciously to control your shade and your sun. And you want to, over time, not in the first 2 or 3 years usually, but maybe starting around year 4, 5, you want to begin to replace some of your support plants. And when I say replace support plants, I'm meaning mainly just the fertility-related support plants, the biomass, and so Mexican sunflower is the main one there. The other plants that are considered support plants are your insectary plants or pollinator support plants. As a matter of fact, not only do you want to keep all those that you started with, but you might even want to replace some of your Mexican sunflowers with some pollinator support plants. Whether it be it could be wax myrtle, or it could be saltbush, or beautyberry, or there's so many native flowering shrubs that you could put in place of your Mexican sunflowers. So that pretty much summarizes that. So just real quickly, don't till or disturb the soil. Don't use chemicals. Don't plant too many annuals, or if you do, just don't don't put that right in the middle of your food forest. I mean, you're just going to have to realize that that little part of your food forest is not going to function ecologically the same way as the rest of your food forest. You'll be disturbing the soil constantly and everything if you're growing annuals there. And don't overwater. And then what to do: water judiciously, mulch a lot, prune as needed, and begin replacing fertility-related support plants with more value-added plants over time. All right, folks, I hope that helps. That's pretty much it for the Food Forest Design class. Please put comments and questions in the comments, I should say. I'd love to hear from you. And everybody, happy gardening.